Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Brighter Black Futures podcast. I'm so glad you're here and joining me today. I've got a great episode planned for you. And speaking of greatness, I'm upping my game today. I'm going to add the segments I spoke about way back in episode 1 that I'd add once I got my footing a little more better. So here I am today with a great interview with an awesome person and also this great intro and some segments to follow before we get into the interview, the meat of the podcast in a few moments. So let's get into it. So the first segment that I plan to share every week with every podcast I do moving forward is something I want to call upliftments. I am a person who loves quotes and I love sharing them with others, especially ones that really are powerful and meaningful to me, hit me right here in my heart and in my mind. And so one I want to share that I absolutely love is by Miss Alice Walker, who is a real one, because if you know, you know. And the quote I want to share from her is this: the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. And I think at this moment in history, there's so many things going on in the world that we feel helps change, that we'd love to change to help make the world a better place. And it's really easy to feel like you can't do anything because you're just one person with your little bit of power. But I think it's important to remember that, first of all, together we're stronger when we come together to work against or work for a better environment, better geopolitical situation, whatever it may be. We can get things done, whether it's on a local scale or globally. And I think people online have shown that in massive ways based on some of the changes that certain governments are trying to make around social media. And also, I think that as an individual, just you and your little self, right where you are now, can make a difference by starting where you're at and using your voice, your writing, your energies, your money, and putting it all towards causes that you care about and the things that you want to change. And I know for me, Brighter Black Future is has definitely been born because I chose to reclaim my power. I'm so pissed off, honestly, about so much injustice in the world, particularly racial injustice for all peoples, but especially for my community. And I decided to lean in and say, I'm not going to focus on that as far as letting it beat me down and hurt me. I'm going to focus on what I can do to make it better for myself and the people coming up behind me, which are, of course, the children of today, because they're going to be fabulous adults despite what the naysayers are trying to do or say to them, because I'm going to make it so, and we're going to make it so together by using our power, whether we have a little bit of power or a whole lot of power, to make positive change. So again, the quote is: the most common way people give up their power is by believing they don't have any. And I believe we all have power, whether it's a little or a lot, and we can do what we can to move ourselves forward and move things in direction we want them to go by leaning in and using our voice, lifting our pens, or putting our energies, our time, money, and effort into making positive change that we want to see. And there you go. So that's the first section, the first ever upliftments segment of the podcast. All right, let's get into the second segment. And if you know me and you've been around for a bit, particularly on my Instagram page, you know that I'm a big proponent of Black history, personally just understanding it, and also it's going to be a big part of the Brighter Black Futures programming for kids. So I'm going to share some information about a few people in Black history who lifted their voice, or more correctly, their pens or the press, to make sure that they got information out to people who needed it to help change their lives. Okay, so for this Black history segment, I'm going to talk about 3 people, 2 people from days gone by, and 1 who is a contemporary author. So let's get into it. So, first person I'm going to speak about is Mr. Robert Abbott, and he was a publisher. So let me tell you about him, who was an American publisher. So he was born shortly after the Civil War, and he founded the Chicago Defender in 1905. And for those of you who don't know it, the Chicago Defender was a pivotal Black newspaper that influenced the creation of other significant publications such as Essence and Jet. Abbott's success made him one of the nation's prominent Black millionaires in the post-emancipation era, paving the way for future publications such as Ebony and Jet, and for other publishers like Earl Graves and John H. Johnson. So he started the Chicago Defender with just 25 cents in capital and a 4-page pamphlet, but it quickly gained popularity, reaching over 500,000 readers weekly. And how did the paper grow to have such a large audience? Well, that is in large part due to Abbott's resourcefulness and determination. He decided to have Black railroad porters deliver the paper all across the nation to Black people, especially Black people living in the South. And it is said that Mr. Abbott was instrumental in facilitating the Great Migration because in his paper he told Black people about the jobs that were available in the North. After the end of the Great Migration, Mr. Abbott turned his focus to issues of racial injustice, covering Jim Crow laws and segregation laws, as well as events like the 1919 Chicago riots. The Chicago Defender continued to be an important source of information for the Black community until his death, when his nephew, John Senstack, took over the Chicago Defender and expanded its influence across the nation through other Black newspapers. Now, the next person I'd like to tell you all about is Mary Bim. She was born in 1820 as Mary Elizabeth Miles, and she was an abolitionist, a teacher, a journalist, an editor, and a publisher. She married fellow abolitionist Henry Bibb in 1848, and together they moved from America to Canada to an area called Sandwich, which is now a neighborhood in Windsor, Ontario. And once there, they continued their abolitionist work together, supporting freedom seekers who crossed the border over into Canada. Mary also opened a school for Black children and managed the Refugee Home Society, aiding formerly enslaved individuals with resources and farmland. In 1851, Mary and her husband started the Voice of the Fugitive, Canada's first abolitionist newspaper run by African Canadians. The newspaper ceased operation in 1854 after Henry's passing, and Mary is today recognized as Canada's first Black female journalist for her contributions to the Voice. Because of her great contributions to Canadian history, and particularly the Black community in Canada, Mary has been named a person of national historical significance by the Canadian government. That happened in 2002. She also is commemorated by a plaque that is in Windsor, Ontario, in the neighborhood she lived in, and also a park there has been named in her honor. And the final author I want to tell you all about is a young girl by the name of Lauren Teixeira. She hails from the UK, and she was just 9 years old when she published her first book. And officially in that country, she's known as the youngest person of African Portuguese descent to ever publish a book in the UK. Now, in her book, Lauren, That's Me, The Journey of a Powerful African Girl, Lauren showcases her Cape Verdean heritage, as well as explores themes like Black representation, self-love, and the unique journey of a young African girl being raised by a single parent. Lauren's book invites readers to celebrate their heritage, appreciate their strength, and the resilience of young Black girls. Now, it's time for the meat of the podcast, The Juice, my interview with a fabulous human. Her name is Dwania Peele, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Now let's get into it. We're back again with Ms. Dwania Peele, and I'm going to do a little introduction before we start this interview. So Dwania Peele, the dynamic founder and executive director of Canadian Small Business Woman, is a driving force in the entrepreneurial realm. She is a public speaker, a business strategist, entrepreneur, and author who recently released her third book, Tomorrow is Another Day, which chronicles her journey from breast cancer patient to survivor. With over a decade of experience, Dwania has left an indelible mark on the entrepreneurial landscape as a keynote speaker and panelist all across North America. Through workshops and seminars, she has helped to propel tens of thousands of entrepreneurs to success. As a result, she has earned widespread recognition and acclaim and has been honored with awards, including the Alumni Ambassador Award from the University of Windsor, her alma mater, Top 40 Under 40 Award from the Brampton Board of Trade, the IWAA Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and the Top 100 Black Women to Watch in Canada. What? Let's go, Dwania. All right, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Bisa. I sound so good based on the intro. Ooh.
Right. Those stats are fantastic. Anyways, so let's get into the questions because I think she's going to have a lot to share. So we want to get started right away. So, you are the founder of an organization called Canadian Small Business Women, or CSBW for short, and you decided to start it to help other female entrepreneurs have more access to the resources and skills they need to thrive as business owners. So, why is supporting and championing other business owners, particularly women, so important to you?
I started Canadian Small Business Women because I wanted to do something for people who were like me. I'm a Black immigrant woman and I came to the country with business ideas. A lot of times when I would look around, I would only see job fairs that are directed to immigrants. And we have great business ideas too. We just don't want to only be pushed towards the labor market. We want to be able to develop our ideas and be successful entrepreneurs. And that's really what pushed me. I want to help people who look like me.
Excellent. And that's such a fabulous idea and decision to make because, yeah, like you said, so many people have business ideas. And I think they're though the Canadian government would not admit it, there's some directions that certain immigrants are pushed versus others. And I think this is a wonderful initiative in that regard. Fantastic. All right. So, one of the most high profile events that CSBW puts on every year, save during the pandemic, is the Amplify Your Voice conference. And I went to it last year. It was in May, and I learned a ton from the amazing lineup of speakers you had on the stage. But the thing that I loved the most about it was the sense of community in the space. All those entrepreneurs meeting for the first time, or maybe not, but just connecting and making contacts that would help them in the future. And my question about that is, as a business owner who is all about community yourself, how has having a strong network of your peers, supportive, dynamic entrepreneurs like yourself, helped support and promote your own business success?
Sometimes it's still surprising when I look back and see the community that we've built. It's been over 10 years, but it has been a really strong and supportive community. And it makes me feel really good when I go out to in person events and people come up to me and I can feel their sense of pride when they see me and they're like, you did this, like you did this. You I feel that sense of pride. So I do lean on the community for support, but it's a give and take. I try to provide the community with everything that I feel they need. I survey them a lot to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but I feel very appreciative of them supporting me, but also supporting each other. I really love to have, like you said, you felt that sense of community. I love to see in a room when we have a break in any event and people are really talking to each other and you see if you see people who haven't seen each other in a while, you see that little run and the hug. It's like, oh my gosh, and what have you been up to? Or people who are just meeting for the first time. I love seeing it. I love the sense of community. I love my community, hands down, best one out there.
I would concur. Yes. All right. So this year, you're going to have another Amplify Your Voice conference. And this year, it's about the power of the pen, storytelling through writing and authorship. So, what should people who are planning to attend expect to see, hear, learn at this year's conference?
I'm going to start this by telling a little story. When I first started Canadian Small Business Women, I really wish I remembered the name of the lady. I might as I go along. It was in my first year. And I remember going to this networking event. It was being held by the Toronto Star. They used to hold some swanky events, and I loved attending. I would probably be one of three Black people in the room, but us three Black people, we know each other.
Yeah.
And one of them was this lady. I forgot her name, but she writes a lot of books. She has a lot of books out there. And I remember she looked at me and she said, one day you are going to be an author. And I laughed at her. I said, I don't even like writing an email. So hard no on that. Hard no. And she's like, okay, you'll see. And here I am, 3 books later. But, I always remember that voice in my head. And I would like entrepreneurs to look at the fact that having a book can open a lot of opportunities for you. One, it's a really good way to either share your story or share your expertise. It's also a great way to market yourself because when you do speaking engagements, if everyone you're looking at can touch a copy of your book, you're impacting that many more people, right? So we're going to have a publisher, an independent publisher, telling people about all the different publishing options that they have, because it's always good to know. We're going to interview a panel who they were participating in a collaborative book. If you don't know what a collaborative book is, it's like you have one person who's the lead, and then everyone gets to write a chapter. If you don't want to write a book on your own, and let's say you want to write 30 pages to tell your story, you can be a part of a collaborative book. I'm going to talk about the collaborative process. I'm going to be interviewed actually by a good friend of mine, and we're going to talk about my publishing process, because I released the book. The copy Bisa has in hand is released through a big publishing house.
Wow.
I will be republishing my book just in time for the event, an extended version with some perks in it, with an independent publisher. And I'm going to talk about my experiences with it too. So it's
That's
going to be a great day, learning how to publish, networking, great food, and really good swag too.
That's really interesting what you're saying about the possibility of having a big publisher and then a small publisher or just two publishers. I didn't even know that was possible with the extended version. That's super interesting. So of course, there's going to be tons of learning there. In that regard, that's super. I didn't know that was possible. So that increases your reach and also the potential for money making as well, right? As a business owner.
Yeah, it does. And that's why you're in business, right? To make money. So I know I didn't mention the event date. It's May 5th, and it's in Mississauga. You want to be there, hands
Excellent.
down.
And where can they get tickets? Let's just do this now while we're still on topic.
Tickets can be found on our website, canadiansmallbusinesswomen.ca, or you can click the link in our bio, go to any one of our social pages. You'll be able to find tickets.
And to make it easy, I'll add it to the show notes when I post it as well, so you can find it there. All right. So you have written 3 books to date. Fulfill that woman's prophecy, even though you didn't believe it at the time, which is awesome. And that's quite an accomplishment. Many of us are walking around thinking we have a book inside of and haven't started, or I have started and stopped and have this manuscript that's collecting dust. What would you say to people who are out there struggling, thinking, I can't even start or I can't finish a book? What would you say to them to encourage them to keep going?
I still get nervous when I write an email. Okay. I still get nervous. I am the queen of a bullet point. Okay. Bullet, 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 bullet point. That's me. All you have to do is start. If it makes it easier for you, you can start by doing voice notes, because for some people, like myself, I love to talk. So it's easier for me to talk. I can do voice notes or just journal. There are a lot of people out there who journal. That's how I started that latest book. I am not a journaler, but I decided to do it. And I converted that journal into a book. The other thing is, you can find writing partners. There are ghostwriters out there, or there are people who can help you paint the picture, because sometimes we don't have the ability, like we want to tell the story, but we just don't know how to paint the picture clearly. There are people who can help you with that. So just start anywhere. Write that outline and say, this is what I want my book to be about. And also, not just what you want your book to be about, how do you want your readers to feel when they read your book?
Super important question, yes. Because the tone of a book will dictate who enjoys it and for what reasons. That's really another
Mhm.
great, more gems that people get at the conference as well. Expanded versions of that.
Yeah.
So, sticking to the topic of books, Tomorrow is Another Day. Here it is again. I'm going to show the cover and her beautiful face. Tomorrow is Another Day is your latest book. It's very personal one. It takes the readers through your cancer journey, which was difficult for you for sure. And most people wouldn't want to talk about it. So, what made sharing your story compelling for you? Something you really want to do?
I took it on as a personal responsibility, because as a woman who is from the Caribbean, I'm from Jamaica, it's not something that people talk about a lot. People don't even want to say the word cancer. It's like it's the bad word. Cancer is not the same now as it was back in like my grandparents' day. It's not a death sentence, right? Not necessarily. More people survive than not. So I want people to feel comfortable having this conversation about the illness and about just the whole process. I felt I needed to do that. in order to make other people feel like it's okay to have the conversation. Because, like people be like, oh, she's sick. No, no, no. Say what it is. Breast cancer. You can say it.
Yes, Caribbean folk and maybe particularly Jamaicans, but I think Caribbean folk in general are very much about don't put your business on the street. It's always a secret because somebody could use it against you later. It's a very interesting thing culturally. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
But, I think of it differently too. I get that. But in my head, I'm like, no one is going to talk about what I've been through before I talk about what I've been through.
Love that. And it's so true, right? Claim your story. So true.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So, like I said, I finished reading the book today, and you're definitely the kind of person who doesn't during your journey. You weren't like let's not delve into the feelings of a situation, but there are lots of little things where you said I learned lessons because of the pain and the discomfort and the challenges you went through during that time. And at the end, you talk about the fact that though it was a harrowing journey in lots of ways, you had lots of support from your family, and you're truly grateful for the journey itself. So, what makes you grateful to the journey you went on as a result of having cancer?
It taught me a lot of things about myself. It really did. And because I am the type of person who is able to pull back and try to find the lesson in everything that I do, it was really easy for me to start identifying these things. The first part, it was so difficult to learn to accept help. It was so hard, even though it's from the people who are closest to me. But to just be able to sit and let everyone do all the things was very hard. It was to the point where one of my sisters, she sat me down, she pulled up a stool, put my feet up, and she gave me the remote. And she's like, that's your only job today. If you want water, I will get it. I'm like, but the kitchen's like 10 steps away. She's like, if you want water, I will get it. Your only job is to sit here and operate the remote. So, yeah, I learned a lot about myself, a lot.
Accepting how like help like that could be very hard for people who are committed to doing, or that's what you always do. You're always the one who help yourself. So it's like a big mind shift, right? I've seen family members go through that when they've had health issues.
I'm the eldest, so I'm the one providing the help.
Right.
So it was really hard to be the one on the receiving end.
Absolutely. But I'm glad your family was there for you. It sounded like from the book, it sounded like they were more supportive than most people ever get in their life. So that's
Yeah.
really grateful that you had that support throughout your journey. The book. You, of course, like said close to the end as well, you realize that you're holding in your feelings to protect other people and make sure they got through, not wouldn't have to worry about you so much. And it was through your therapist you learned a lot of things that helps you cope better. And mental health is a big issue for every community, but in the Black community, we tend not to talk about it a lot, and we need to talk about it more.
hmm
So I want to say, ask you, what would you say to somebody who is thinking about seeing a mental health professional because they have an illness like cancer or any other big issue in their life, a transitional moment, and they're like nervous about it? Like, what would you say? Because it wasn't something you were compelled to do before you got there either.
Right. You know what? My oncologist, he's amazing. Okay. Amazing. And the crazy thing is, out of all the things he did for me and all the advice he gave me, the one that I feel was the best advice ever was for me to go and get a therapist, because he looked at me frankly and said, you've been through a lot. Like, seriously, you've been through a lot. You need a therapist. And it never dawned on me. And it was the best decision I ever made. It was it was mind-blowing and eye-opening. And it really helps you put things into perspective. And it also helped me learn how to really focus on healing me, because I am still going through what I call et ceteras, like, all of all of the other things you have that comes, like the side effects of it all. Some are mental, some are physical, but I now I've learned ways to work through them all because of therapy.
Totally big proponent of therapy here. So I really wanted to ask that question because I think it's so important that we keep sending the message that therapy is okay. It does not make you crazy. You don't have to go every week for the rest of your life, but spot checks once in a while, once you get to a place where you're better, will keep you chugging along so much better than you were before. I firmly believe that. I'm sure from your experience, you can say the same thing.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Right? Yeah. And I think it makes you better in a way that other people notice and your relations are deepened and you can know what's yours and what's theirs as far as issues. And yeah, therapy is awesome. That's what we're trying to say here. Therapy is awesome. All
Bye-bye.
right. So I'm going to round out here and ask you before we go, is there anything else you want our audience to know about your book, about your journey, about the Amplify Your Voice conference, the power of the pen this year? Please feel free to share this moment.
I want to say one thing about the book. I just actually went to a book club meeting where they read my book, and someone said to me, "Oh my gosh, you were so positive during everything. Like, it's unbelievable." And, I'm a silver lining kind of person. And everything is not just about the lesson, but it's about the ride as well. And that's how I try to live my life. I try to find the good in everything. And even if it's something terrible, then I find the lesson in it because there's a reason why I'm going through it. But I am thankful to all the medical professionals. I remember I was doing an interview for Trillium. They do mailers and sometimes they have personal stories. And it was the first time I was talking to someone about just the whole process and about what I was going through. And she asked me if you can say anything to the medical professionals who helped you, what would it be? And I literally broke down in tears because thank you just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So, yeah, it's honor them, people. Honor them. They're great. They're great. They say, yeah, here saving
Oh,
lives.
you had a really beautiful. I'm so happy for you because as somebody who works in the sphere of cancer, that's not everybody's story, but I'm so happy that was your story that the professionals you had came through for you in such a big and beautiful way. So
Yes.
hooray for healthcare professionals who are doing good work and supporting people the way they need. That is beautiful. All right, so I'm going to plug her conference one more time since you didn't. She was talking about her book and her healthcare workers. Amplify Your Voice conference, Power of the Pen, all about authorship and writing this year. Lots, 9 speakers total throughout the day. You get some food, can get to connect with a great community and learn a ton. And you get to meet Dwania Peele, who's awesome, as you guys can tell. May 5th, happening in Mississauga, and tickets will be at the link that I share in the show notes. And of course, if you go and check out Canadian Small Business Women, their website or online on social media, you will find the info there. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dwania. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, this was awesome.
We'll have to do it again sometime real soon.
Okay.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.